Keegan here, and today, well, we're talking about the people who are just getting into this great sport of ours in the year 2025 and what I think y'all should get. This is all about your first bowling ball, what it should be, what it shouldn't be, and what to look for. Now, when I say first bowling ball, I'm kind of skipping a step. Because for a lot of people, I do think that their first bowling ball should be probably something plastic. However, that's not fun to talk about. This is more about your first reactive bowling ball, your first performance ball, what it should be, what you should look for, what you should kind of be thinking about. And there's two levels that I have on this, and that's true entry-level balls, the ones that are kind of designed to be that kind of introduction to performance, that introduction to what reactive is. And then there are the ones that are designed to be what I call usable step-ups that aren't really gonna throw you out of whack if you do choose to go that route, and are even probably going to be usable much longer in like a long-term thing. But they are a step up in both price and performance. So that's just something to think about when looking at stuff like this. The true entry levels, starting with the ones that I struggle to recommend to people. That's the tropical surges and twists. Now the new tropical surges, the ones that are being poured in Utah now, the black pearl and the solid, I will lump those in closer with the hustles, but all the other ones being poured in Mexico, those are just a little bit too weak. The newer ones have bumped up performance, you can kind of tell. They are still very weak, but not as weak as they could have been. The twist, however, those are also super weak. I wouldn't recommend going with those unless you have a good bit of rev rate and you know that already, and you know that you are mostly going to be bowling on really dry conditions. Then we get into stuff like the two tropical surges that I mentioned, and the hustles and the rhinos. Those are going to be really close in performance. Now the rhinos, those are just the standard rhinos, not the Rhino Pro. I do mention that later in this video though. Those are all really good entry-level balls. They're slightly stronger core-wise. The covers are just a little bit stronger as well. But they're not going to be uncontrollable, but they're also not going to be so weak that people can't get them to move. Then we go into the two hammer options, the Raw series, which I would consider a step above the Rhinos, and the Vibe series, which I would consider a step above the Raws. Just in strength, they're going to be the two most true, two longest term in entry levels, other than maybe the hustles. The hustles are very well renowned for being some of the best entry level balls out there for a reason. They are very good, the core is very good, but in terms of just pure overall strength, the Raw and Vibes are a step up, so you may see some further use out of them. That's really it for the true entry level performances. Other than, I think there's the Max Thrills from Motive. Those are pretty close to this level as well. Those are just, in price wise, they're around this level, but they also are a fair bit stronger. Bang for your buck, they are a really good deal. I just don't know too much about them. I don't see a lot of Motive stuff in this area. Then we get into the usable step ups. First ball that I have to mention is a High Road. The High Road has been around for, it can drive as of last November. It's 16 years old. This year will be year 17. That's, for a bowling ball, that's insane. That bowling balls normally last around 1 to 2 years, and with this newer generation of bowling balls, they're lasting potentially a year. really good stuff will live a longer time, but especially if you're a brand like any of the SBI brands, Motive, and then Hammer, potentially Brunswick on some things, but the SBI brands, which is Storm, Rotogrip, and 900 Global, Motive, and then Hammer, they'll keep stuff around longer. The other brands, if it's not selling, it's going. But 16 years. And then another ball that's been around for forever, the IQ Tour. This is the blue one. I would consider it a usable ball that is a step up. However, it's a little bit different than a lot of these other ones, except for two more that I'm about to mention right after this. And it's going to be probably the most tour type ball. The cover is strong enough that you're going to get plenty of movement, but the core is designed to be controllable. So the one thing to note about that is you got to be careful when it comes to developing habits trying to get the ball to move. The ball will want to move, but with a tamer core compared to some of these other ones I'm going to be mentioning here in a little bit, you may not visibly see as much movement. They are really good balls, and I think would be beneficial to people in the long term. However, if you think that you're going to just want to see the ball move, and you're going to try to do that with your hand, you could develop some bad habits. Just something to note. And that's the case with both the Venom Shock, Scorpion Low Flare, and even a little bit the Rattler Big Bite. Those are all kind of tour type balls that have what we call low flare cores. They're going to be smoother, they're going to be a little bit more controllable, but if you just want to see motion, you may not get along with them as much. And like I said, if you go that route and try to make them have motion with your hand, it's a good way to start developing some bad habits. Same with the IQ Tour Ruby, a little bit, but the IQ Tour Ruby is sharper naturally, so I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue. Same with the Ivory Rhino Pro that I kind of mentioned earlier. They're both naturally sharper, which will help with you seeing the motion happening, where the others are a bit more gradual. So that's something that you could take a look at, but just be aware of the reality surrounding tour type balls. They are very good balls. The issue does come from the fact of people get hook envy, and I just don't want you developing bad habits because of that. Moving on to a pair of balls from Storm, the Road and the Road Warrior. The Road is a pretty good ball, but it's not the best one that Storm has out, if I'm being 100% honest with you. It's going to be a little bit stronger than something like the High Road or the Road Warrior, and probably even overall stronger than the other tour type balls I just mentioned, except for maybe the Scorpion Low Flare. It's just, it does have a stronger cover. It's actually, I think, other than maybe the Low Flare, the strongest cover I have on here. And the Low Flare doesn't even have a super strong cover. It's just really smooth. Low Flare, by the way, my ball of the year for 2024. It is a really good ball. But the Road and Road Warrior, the Road is stronger. The Road Warrior is going to be a little bit cleaner, a little bit sharper. I know if you're looking into this, you probably saw something about a ball called the High Road Pearl. That ball's not being made anymore, sadly. But the Road Warrior is the closest thing on the market to it. It has the same core shape, and a very, very similar cover, and honestly, probably a little bit more usable specs for people trying to get into this. Then, let's see, what else do I have on here? Already mentioned the Ivory Rhino Pro. The Anger from Hammer. It has the same cover as the Vibe series, so overall it's going to be very similar strength, but it has a stronger engine and core inside of it, so it's going to be a little bit more overall, but I think it's going to be a pretty good ball. I haven't seen a ton from it lately, but I think for people who are just wanting that really kind of sharp and visible reaction for their first ball, it won't be a bad option, because the core is going to do a lot of work in getting the ball to move, and it won't force you to have to make it move. And the last ball I have on here is actually similar level. It's just a little bit more tame, a little bit more controllable. The Scorpion Strike from Hammer. It's not super duper strong. It's still very sharp off the back end, but compared to like the Anger, it's not as sharp and not as aggressive, which I think is a good thing. I think it's a really good balance, and out of everything except I think but the High Road itself, I think that's what I would go with if you're wanting to go something in the usable step up category. But yeah, I know I've been rambling a lot, but that's just kind of a general idea of what I think y'all should be looking at. Basically, I made this video because I want to say this thing at the end. Don't get a Black Widow. You don't need a Black Widow for your first ball. Black Widows are great. However, you really, before you start going into asymmetric bowling balls and the super strong stuff, that's when how you actually throw the ball really starts to get important. Like, it's always important, but it really gets important with that step up stuff. And when you go for that right off the bat, it's a lot harder, downright impossible, to really get it set up for how you bowl and let you actually take the most advantage of those bowls. Black Widows are just kind of the most common thing, but also don't get a purple hammer. Don't get urethane for your first ball. You don't need urethane. The vast majority of people don't need urethane on house shots. If you can throw it and it works, great. But unless you're bowling on sport, you're probably not going to consistently be throwing urethane. I know I sound like I'm dogging on hammer. I'm not. I'm drilling up 2 hammer balls here in about a week or so. I just drilled 2 last month. With the, well, not last month, the month before, with the Hammer Effect and the Hammer Effect Tour and the Envy Tour. My ball of the year, and my favorite ball right now, is the Scorpion Low Flare. It's a hammer ball. But for your first ball, maybe like the third, don't get a Black Widow. And until you're really bowling on Sport Shot, don't get a purple hammer. You just really don't need it. Unless you're bowling on conditions where you just need absolute control and you don't care about other people complaining about carry down and all that stuff, you're really not going to need the urethane. But this is a long enough video as it is. I've been OSIMA Ball Reviews. Oh shoot, I missed again. And I hope I don't miss y'all next time. Thanks for watching.